Okay, so our agenda for today, we've got our introductions and welcome, the state of the industry. We're starting at 12:15. If I talk fast, we'll get a little bit earlier on that. And we're going to also have a little bit of the chapter annual report. What is ATD Orange County doing? How have we been working over the past year? And what are we doing over the coming year to really build this community of practice for talent developers where you can come in, you can learn, you can develop your skills, you can practice in a safe environment, and then you can take all this experience to the workplace of your choice. So we'll talk about that as well after our state of the industry discussion. Few things I'd like to have you do. Please, by all means, save these dates. Tomorrow, we've got our Executive Next Practices Forum, Building Sustained Innovation and Growth, Strategic Partnering in 2019. What I'm going to actually do, I'm going to dive into our calendar here. By all means, ladies and gentlemen, please come in and check out our calendar, not for what learning event we've got coming up next, but also for other events that are of interest to the talent development industry. So we've got this. Here's our Executive Next Practices Forum. This is not an ATD event, but these are people that we're partnering with to help provide some talent development expertise inside our community. This is happening at UCI, so it's, you know, right inside our neck of the woods. We always like to talk about technology. Technology usually is in Las Vegas, but this year they decided to move it all the way to the other side of the country in West Palm Beach, Florida. Still, this is one of the premier opportunities for training and development professionals to learn more about how to utilize technology in ways that would benefit our training initiatives. Not necessarily just how to create great e-learning, but how to create online environments, how to go ahead and tap into that mobile learning practice that everyone's talking about. How do we go ahead and make the sense of all the trends and the things that we'll mention today, but how do we make sense of all these trends and apply this into the technology that is sustainable, that is efficient, that is economical, and that will help our organizations grow. I always like to put this out there. If you end up going to technology, if you register for that, please, when you register, utilize the chapter incentive program code. This helps ATD-Orange County immensely. And the analogy that I like to use, if I kept it, I'm going to blame someone for throwing it away now. The analogy that I like to use is the school programs, the school charity programs, where if you go to this restaurant, right now, this week, my kids, if they go to Chuck E. Cheese and spend money at Chuck E. Cheese, their school gets 20% of that proceedings, right? We're not spending any more money, but Chuck E. Cheese is giving 20% of the proceeds to their school, which is a great and wonderful thing. For ATD, Orange County, if you go to ATD National and get anything from them, and you mention us, you say, yeah, I'm with those guys, then ATD National will send 10% of the proceeds to ATD Orange County to really help support our chapter in its mission to give you an environment to practice whatever knowledge that you're getting from National. ATD National is for the knowledge, we're for the skill building. That's how I like to analyze that. So, long rambling. The chip, by all means, go ahead and include that whenever you buy something from National. Back to our neck of the woods, Change Leadership SIG diagnosis is still part of the cure. That's happening on February 22nd, 2019. Denise Lamont, who was one of our founders of the Change SIG, she's on the webinar. We're really thrilled that she started this. It's a great program that she's been passionate about, and she's passed it on to Jason Galiner, who's also passionate about ensuring that we're able to manage change within our organizations. Our February learning event next month, please, we'd love to see you in person here, is focusing on creating a coaching culture, strategies used by exemplary organizations. We've got a speaker who'll go ahead and talk about how to ensure that you're not just training, you're actually coaching and developing your people through that. And then by all means, the Core 4 Conference of 2019, this is happening in March. This is also an ATD national event, but we're really thrilled it's in Anaheim. So it's right in our neck of the woods, focusing on the foundations of training, foundations of talent development. So take a look at that. Go inside our calendar, take a look at all these things, see what we have available for you. You'll be really surprised. It's going to be an engaging and active year in 2019. So I look forward to hearing from everyone there. Okay, moving right along here. So I talk about how this is a community of practice. I talk about how we're trying to ensure that we're giving you the opportunities to develop your skills in a safe environment. And I pigeonhole that, I dovetail that in with volunteerism. What are your 2019 professional goals and how can we help you reach them? So that's my big question. And I'd love it if you were to go ahead and type in the chat box right now, what's a 2019 professional goal that you have? What are you trying to do this year that's going to elevate your career for now and then for the next years? You can type in the chat. And he says, further developing my coaching skills. Pam wants to be more technology savvy. Edith, learn more about organizational development. So for those of you who are already typing in chat, let me ask you this. Technology, specific about technology that you would love to know more about. Something that you're saying, hey, yeah, technology. This right here is what's bugging me right now. You're talking about organizational development. What is it about OD? That's a broad field. Is there anything that you're narrowing down specifically saying for 2019, pow, this is it?
Paul, there's an interesting one. Join ATD member. Lori.
Yeah, that one. Lori, you know, that's really easy to do.
I know.
I want to develop my leadership skills and gain a position in OC, okay? Charles, all right, so find a new role in corporate leadership. Work more with creation. Enhance my technology skills and implement e-learning for remote locations. Ooh, okay. All right, so we've got a good broad spectrum of stuff. And we've got things in here that I'll tell you.
Do you have a lot of noise in the background? Did you
yeah,
do
I know.
something?
Can I do something? I can mute everyone. Oh, hold on, hold on. Ha! I found the culprit. I was looking through our attendee list to see where the noise was coming from. So if you were muted, it's because we heard some background noise coming from your mic. We apologize for that. If you start talking at us, then you might need to unmute your mic. That's all. All right. So let's see. What do we have here? Video creation, technology. We've got a lot of things on the list here. Now, I'll tell you something. If you want to practice video creation, ATD-Orange County is the place. All right. We've got people who would love to work with you on how to develop your video creation skills. We've got some raw footage in the background that we want to be able to get out and produce content for our chapter. We'd love to see that happening in here. If you want to go ahead and learn more about technology skills, focusing on e-learning in remote locations, ATD-Orange County is a place for you. We've got the Training and Technology Special Interest Group that's actually working on finding those technological solutions and how to utilize these things. Last year, they were focusing pretty much on Captivate. This year, they're going to kind of bounce around a little bit with different technologies. Developing leadership skills. OMG, leadership skills. If you want to develop leadership skills, yes, we are the place. And we'll talk about that truly in the form of volunteerism. Being a part of this chapter and actually actively engaging in the volunteerism role gets you to develop a lot of different leadership skills. And if you want any proof of that, ask Jeffrey Hansler, our past president, who really went through the ringer with us. So we've got that as well. My point being, if you want to grow in the talent development field, you've got a specific goal. Talk with any one of the chapter board members. Talk with Lynn Neeson, who is our VP of Talent Management. Talk with Suthmitha, who's doing some stuff with professional development as well. Talk with any of us. We will help you find some skill-based experience that will help you meet that goal. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're about. the very least, we'll have you go ahead and lead a webinar where you can go ahead and control audio.
That's for Tracy Bynes. That's for you, Tracy.
That's for you, Tracy. There you go. All right. So the state of the industry. Let's go ahead and start sharing some information about the state of the industry, about your facility. Did Jeffrey manage to get on the line? Jeffrey, you're on the line.
And I think he's the one making all the noise.
No, he isn't. It was a different person. Jeffrey, can you hear our voice? Okay, well, we can't hear Jeffrey right now. Jeffrey Hansler is the past president of ATD-Orange County. He's also, I was going to ask him what a CSP stands for. Your chance, Jeffrey. He's also the managing partner of the Oxford Company Consultants. He's been a really valuable person within the ATD-Orange County chapter to bring in the expertise and the viewpoints of talent development industry from an external consultant role. And so what we're doing here today, we're going to have Jeffrey share some of his information, the insights that he has from that particular viewpoint of the external consultant. The other person is Susmitha, sitting right over here. And Susmitha is our current chapter president. She's been an instructional designer going through the ranks for many, many years. She's been in talent development for a while. I believe she's got some roles within UCLA, as well as working with Glidewell Dental. There it is, right there, the UCLA Extension Virtual Facilitator. And we're really thrilled to have her represent and think about the internal learning and development practitioner when it comes to the state of the industry. So Susmitha and Jeffrey, welcome. Would you like to say anything to add?
Thanks, Paul. Hey, Paul, I changed to the phone call. So
okay.
it wasn't working on the computer.
Curse those computers.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'll be quiet and call me when you need me and tell me where we are.
That's all he wants to.
Okay. All right. Anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you for. I just want to thank everyone for being here today, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm not perfect, so I would like all of you to chime in, and I know a lot of you are internal practitioners too, and help us understand what the state of the industry report that's come out means to all of us. That would be really useful to each one of us to learn and take away from each other.
Thank you, Susmitha. So a little bit about the state of the industry report that we've got here. The state of the industry report is ATD's benchmark report. It has been published for, well, ever since I've been a member of ATD-Orange County. I've actually forgotten how long it's been around. But the state of the industry focuses on what is going on in the industry and what is it that our clients, our people, those who we impact with this business, what is it that's affecting their industry and how we're working through. So that's rambling. We've got 4 different segments here. Hang on 1 second. I really was under the impression I shut this down. We've got 4 different segments here within the state of the industry report. One of them is focusing on efficiencies and expenditures. These are the numbers. This is the benchmark. If you track ROI, or if you're really looking to track ROI, you're going to look at this information here within the report. So one of the things that the report comes up with is it says that spending on employee learning continues to be strong. This is the 6th year in the row that's seen an increase in direct learning expenditure. We're going to take a look at those increases. We're going to see how the expenditures have been broken down, what benchmarks this report track, and we're going to ask you the questions. How can this benchmark actually impact you, and what is it that you do in the organization to support that, okay? So there's that. Content distributions. What content areas have the largest share of the learning portfolio? We will tell you right off the bat, to keep you from suspense, management training is actually high up there on the list. We'll go case to case. Was it number one, or did it fall down a few points? Those are the conversations we have today. Delivery methods is all the discussion about the prevalence of e-learning and the demand of M-learning, backed up by this report's findings. We'll take a look at those and see how instructor-led training fares in competition with e-learning and mobile learning. And there's a little caveat that we have for on-the-job training. Now, I'm not going to talk about on-the-job training within this particular webinar. We've got enough to go ahead and address here. But the formal learning hours that are described in this report only account for the standalone learning that occurred separately from on-the-job activities. But we do recognize that in many organizations, learning experiences that happen during work are critical to employee development. So if you look at the report, you'll see how that tracks how this reviews this fact of training in a little bit more detail. Okay, so key efficiencies and expenditures here. This is the main thrust of the report. And when ATD talks about this, they like to talk about the fact that we've got direct expenditure per employee. Now, the report looks at the consolidated, everyone in the survey who responded, which was almost 400 companies responded to the ATD National Survey. It also takes a look at the BEST. Now, Susmitha reminded me what BEST stands for. BEST is an ATD acronym. ATD National hands out the BEST awards to various companies that achieve this particular standard. Building talent, enterprise-wide, strategically driving talent development culture. So the BEST, the B is building talent, E is enterprise-wide, S is strategically driving, and then T, talent development culture. And then they throw in and deliver results. So every year, ATD acknowledges the organizations that are the best, as according to that acronym, and you'll see their numbers appearing in the report as well. So right off the bat, when you take a look at direct expenditure per employee, you see that the consolidated numbers are $1,295.76. Best companies actually are a little bit more efficient. They're $1,056.94. That's how much they do for direct expenditure of learning development per employee. But here's the other interesting part of this analysis here. Consolidated, everyone in the survey, the learning hours used per employee there was 34 hours and a bit. But take a look at the best. Even though they spent less per employee, they were able to bump up their learning hours used per employee by over 10 hours per employee. That's 47.88 hours. Okay, so these organizations that ATD National tracks, they're doing something to go ahead and have that impact a little bit more efficiently than the rest of the nation. Jeffrey, are there any thoughts or comments that you have about these particular numbers?
Not at the moment on this one.
Okay.
You're doing great coverage, Paul.
Thank you. I know where Jeffrey's slides are, so we'll go through that. All right, so take a look at some of these other higher numbers, direct expenditures. Yes,
someone is asking you if you are sharing your screen, other than some person else asking you if you were chomping through your food.
I am sharing my screen, yes. Chomping, I can't help with. Denise, do you have authority over the
muting everyone?
The muting people?
But then that would mute out Jeffrey and me too.
Yes, that's true. That's why I don't like muting everyone.
I don't think I do. Let me see.
No, it's okay. I think we.
Oh yeah, I can mute. I can mute everyone.
Denise, don't do that.
I have to do it one by one, I think.
Correct.
So Denise, we just want to mute folks where we hear sound from. We don't necessarily want to mute everyone.
No,
Well, I don't know.
No, that's okay. There's no sound anymore. Let's just carry on.
Okay. All right. Just as an FYI for practice within webinars, I understand muting everyone is it's a standard. It's an easy way of getting it done. From my end, what I typically want to do is I do want people to chime in. and share their thoughts. So I really am hesitant to mute everyone, because then I'm preventing that spontaneity of, hey, I want to share something. Hey, Paul, can I say something? So I'd like to encourage everyone on the line. Hey, Paul, can I say something? But absolutely, if you are eating your lunch, please go ahead and put your phone on mute, so that when we do ask you, when you do want to say something, it's you're the one who has the control, not necessarily on our end. Yeah, you can raise your hand too.
Looks
All
like
right.
everyone's muted.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, let's proceed. Yeah. That's good.
Excellent. A lot of folks got self-muted. I like the people who are self-muted. You folks are awesome. All right, so direct expenditure as a percentage of payroll. You see these numbers here. Now, personally, I like taking a look at these direct expenditure numbers as a percentage of payroll, as a percentage of revenue, as a percentage of profit, because this is where we get to have these conversations about how efficient learning and development is, right? If we're able to go ahead and say, look, yes, we know that we cost money, but take a look at the percentage of our costs compared to revenue, right? And if we're able to say we're bringing in this much revenue through ROI analysis, but our cost as expenditure of payroll or expenditure of revenue is this much, then we get to see exactly whether we are finding a way to improve the organization's bottom line or truly be the drain. This right here, these numbers right here, personally, help us combat that myth that training is always the one that gets cut first. Because now we're able to say, no, we're adding value, we're bringing value to the organization, and here's why. Those of you who are out there striving to prove your ROI, and maybe you're saying it's a little bit too much work, we've got numbers here. We can track these numbers here to show you why it's not too much work if you're able to put forth that value proposition of what it is L&D does. Because of our efforts in sales training, we were able to help the sales department up their revenue by 5%. We only cost, let's take a look at healthcare, 0.79% of the healthcare profits, right? Market value. All right. So that's the conversation that I think we can have.
Yep, Paul, I think you muted yourself too, or Denise, you muted everyone.
It was really pithy what I said, though.
We believe that.
I didn't mean to.
Denise.
I don't know what I clicked. I didn't mean to. I was scrolling in to let you know that Paul Panko has his hand raised for a question.
Okay. Paul, I unmuted you. What's your question?
So Paul, are we going to be able to get these slides afterwards? I know you're taping it, but can we either log in somewhere or get a copy of these, or do we need to take notes?
Well, we've got the recording. We could share the slides.
Okay. Bye.
All right. So there's that. Okay, so moving right along then. So what are the other numbers that are reported here? Employees per L&D staff member, learning hours used per L&D staff member. So this was interesting. If you take a look at the best organization per L&D staff member, 9,136.37 learning hours were used. So that staff member created content that was used over 9,000 hours worth of time, which is pretty darn efficient. In the bigger picture, like the entire survey, learning hours used per L&D staff member was 5,000. So they were not as efficient, but that's still a lot of learning hours used, which is pretty darn impressive. Okay. Cost per learning hour used, you see that number there. You see how the best organizations are much more efficient. Susmitha, there was this conversation that was going on from ATD National. I don't remember the exact numbers. Did they have any logic or reasoning as to why the best organizations had a better cost per learning hour used?
That's primarily because most of the best organizations are larger organizations, so medium-sized, and the number of employees are more. So the utilization is higher as opposed to a smaller organization which spends more money, but the number of employees using it is smaller. And it also is, there's also another logic into it, which is depending on what kind of industry it is. So if, let's say it's, for example, a manufacturing, the kind of training that we're doing there, it could be instructor-led that is more higher, which is being utilized, but the e-learning components or the more specialized components are not being used because of how the demographic there is. So that plays into the best industries' favor, which usually have a more educated or a different kind of a format for being larger organizations.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Just so all of you know, Paul made me read the whole report twice and go through the webinar 4 or 5 times.
I'm a taskmaster. What can I say? Okay. So my question for everyone here, and I'm going to go ahead and type it in the chat box. Oh, yeah, Susmitha raised a good point. Yes, you can get the report for free if you're a national member. We'll share that link at the end. Yes. You can type this in the chat box or go ahead and shout it out. Bless you. Which benchmark do you find most useful? And I'm also curious how many of you are tracking this information? Any thoughts, any comments in here as to which benchmark you're finding most useful and how are you tracking the information?
Maybe, Paul, you want to tell them the efficiencies are the benchmarks, the indicators that we're seeing here are the benchmarks we're looking for?
Right.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. Denise thinks the percentage used for tuition reimbursement is interesting. Okay. That was on this page. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what does that tell us, out of curiosity? If we take a look at that. Percentage of expenditure. So that's the percentage of the overall expenditure. Okay. So only 8% of what's expended for learning and development overall goes to tuition reimbursement.
And there was a good explanation for that too, Paul. It's primarily that tuition reimbursement in different states has different taxes that get attached to it. How much you can spend, which makes it difficult for employers to, and there are very few, and though the employers say they're doing it, the extent to which they can provide it to you becomes limited, primarily because the employee has to pay a tax too, and the employer has to either foot the tax or pass it on to the employee. So depending on the arrangement, fewer employees actually access and use the tuitions.
Interesting. Lynn says the companies I'm working with either don't track this information, or if they don't, they haven't shared the information with her. Past companies you worked for did, okay. Very few offenses that fall into tuition reimbursements. More common spend the money as a department expense, yeah.
Right.
Interesting, okay. So there could be stuff that would be tuition oriented, but it just becomes a department expense and you run through it. Interesting. All right. Jeffrey wanted to share a little bit about how ATD-Orange County has used the data provided by the state of the industry. So the question is, how has the data provided by the state of the industry affected ATD-Orange County strategy? And Jeffrey had a few key thoughts about this, and I wanted to make sure we turned the phone over to him to share that.
Okay, so Paul, I'm on the audio and I can't get the visual. So which slide, what does the slide that's up right now say?
The slide that's up right now talks about the fact that larger employers can provide the same offerings at a lower cost per person.
Right. So one of the things that the report showed, the industry report showed, was larger companies are more efficient, more effective. So one of the things that we're doing is we're partnering with organizations that are helping these smaller organizations. One of those, which actually, Paul, pat you on the back, you were instrumental in, along with Kathleen and several others, is partnering up with 1OC. 1OC works with a lot of nonprofits, most of which fall into this small category. So their cost for delivering training and education for employees at the nonprofits in Orange County would be much, much higher. And 1OC, because they're able to spread the cost out because of their partnership with ATD-OC, they're both delivered at a lower cost. So we're helping our nonprofits get a leg up and a competitive advantage, if you will, in the marketplace. And what we've been actually doing is we're actively looking for other partnerships as well. So, you know, it's one of the ways we're putting the data to work. The industry report is great information. What our members at ATD-OC will benefit by is understanding it, putting the data to work for you in your strategic planning. And we've been doing that. And I think, you know, you're highlighting the industry report, you know, in our first MLE. Is just going to take us further down, where we're going to talk more about how we're using data. Data is critical, and it's one of the things that adds credibility to the training that's going on.
Excellent.
That's
Thank you,
it from
Jeffrey.
Thousand Oaks.
And I think this brings up the point again, right, Paul, which is the best. Why did the best industries do well? The larger the organization, they can offset their costs, but have more people engage in the training. So 1OC exactly does that. It provides us the larger organization, so the training value is going up, training use is going up, but the smaller little entities, which probably like departments within them. And Denise has the same observation they did. I like the fact that BEST provides more hours at less cost. So I think it's keeping in theme with that.
Are there any thoughts, questions, comments from the rest of the group?
I would be interested in knowing if there are people in this group who can categorize themselves as larger industries or smaller industries and share their experience with us on how much of their training is being used. It fits into this data for us at Orange County.
Paul, if I could have one more second, I'll add one more thing and kind of tap onto what Susmitha is doing.
Okay.
Talking about, because one of the reasons some of the best organizations have a lower cost of training, because training includes not only the training, it includes the travel to the training. And the best organizations invest in technology, so they have conference centers where they can have, you know, hybrid sessions, webinar sessions. And that's the other thing that we invested in. Because we know our members are on the move, and they may not be able to get to our events, and so we're trying to create a mobile hybrid package that we can take to anywhere. And so anyway, it's just one of the things that I believe contributes to the lower cost for the best companies. Okay, back to you. Over. Out.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. We're going to bring him along again for another ATD-OC data and action slide in a little bit. But right now we're moving into the learning content areas. And this is Susmitha's part. So we're going to turn that right over to you.
Thank you, Paul. So the content, basically, what we've been discussing so far about the different delivery methods and stuff like that. So one of the areas that this industry report has focused on, and just so you know, the information that they've gathered from all the 400 different enterprises are from 2017, so they could create the report in 2018. So whatever you expect, you're seeing here is 2017 into a little bit of 2018 data. what you can expect to moving forward will be based on that. So what they noticed was there was an increase in managerial and supervisory training or creating content in that area and training being led in that area. And this was a little different from what was happening over the past few years. And there was an uptick in mandatory and compliance, which again went up, but there is a caveat here. This actually moves depending on which industry is leading at that point. So there's been a tendency to see that, or the trend has been an uptick in healthcare, manufacturing, and such industries, which automatically make mandatory and compliance training very much necessary. And that ties into the next one, which is processes, procedures, and business. Again, once again, these are all very mandatory and they have to be done. These are the trainings that an employee has to go through to be successful in their own industry. But one thing that really was a surprise to everyone was the uptake in interpersonal skills, though it lies on the fourth. It's really taking up a lot. And I would like, to throw this back at all of you. For me personally, my take on this is, when I look at managerial and supervisory skills and their demand sets being increased and the training increasing to match it, interpersonal skills goes hand in hand with that, as does, if you look at this graph from bottom up, executive development. I know all of you must be thinking, come on, executive development must be something that everyone is focusing on. I know we do. Yes, everyone does it, but again, remember, this is an across the board data. So with the best industries, the larger industries, the executive development might be at the lower scale because there are fewer executives. So like Jeffrey mentioned, it's not only the content of the training, but everything that goes into it. How many hours of work you put into it, and all the data that you do, which is logistics that you put into it, which is how many people are accessing it, or how much period of time, all that drives down. So if you take a startup where you have the executives being maybe equal number of people as who are working, they might be 5 and 5. Now the executives are using it, the statistics actually go up. So the drivers are a little mushy here, which is why you see executive development at the bottom, but that doesn't mean it's the least. But there has been an uptick definitely in the managerial and supervisory level of trainings. So I would like to ask a question here of all of you is, which of these do you think in your industries, in your own personal spheres, or if you're a consultant, you've seen a more demand for? Is this data matching what you're feeling in the industry right now? Okay, someone muted me and unmuted me right now. Could everyone hear my question? So let me repeat the question. I just told you about what I felt about this, and I wanted to know from all of you if you all met the same graph in your own industries or in your own consultancies. If there is a discrepancy, if there's a difference, what are your thoughts on this? We would like to hear from you. Yes, Ken says managerial leadership and soft skills. Ursula, do you want to say what you mean by saying not really? Denise says executive leadership development isn't higher up. Correct, and that is what I said, Denise, is it depends on which industries actually. So we might, when you go deeper into this study, it actually tells you that the smaller startups or the smaller budget industries are actually pumping more money into executive development because it is more manageable and it is necessary. But those which are larger industries feel that they need to spend more on managerial and supervisory training to help hold the business together. Thank you, Edith. Training leaders. So we think it is matching with what the report is telling us. Right. Yeah, I was surprised, Denise, to see that. But when I dug deeper into it, this is what it looks. Tracy says it's right for us. Perfect. Thank you. So we can say ATD National did a good job. They are actually reflecting the real reports. But one thing, and I think I wanted to bring this up with all of you. I had a big discussion. I know Tracy was, I'm sorry, Tracy, you were listening to half of my questions to Paul when I was pushing this at him. When I looked at this data in front of you, and I want all of you to think with me and correct me if I'm wrong. When I saw, I wouldn't say I'm wrong, but this is how it made sense to me. If you look at this, at the consolidated data, they actually bring up sales as let's not go by the numbers, but let's look at it. When they placed it in the graph, sales was at the bottom. But when they're talking about it, and when I heard to them speak more about the data, they were talking more about the sales and the customer service. And this made a certain sense to me in that all of us want to be there on the top with our sales and customer service, because that is a business. That's a business revenue and output. But we're not seeing that much of a training existing right now in that area, in that field. And for me, it said, this is where we have a gap. And this is where if I'm a consultant, an external consultant, I would hone my skills on. Or if I'm an internal consultant, I would start building more and more towards this, because the demand is going to be building up towards this. If you're not meeting that gap, or you're not bridging that gap, there is going to be a discrepancy between what the executives are asking us or expecting from us as trainers and what we have to deliver in the future. Is this what you're reading from this? I would like to hear from all of you too, if this is what you're reading from this data that we are seeing here in your own Orange County counterparts, or from your counterparts in Orange County or in your industries. Paul, what is your take on this?
Well, my take, I would say, has a little bit to do with, I'd also like to find a way to compare that with the on-the-job training. For my take, I find that the sales folks, I know there's a lot of sales training out there, and I know that we have that push to get sales up and running, but I find that the sales reps, at least all those from my experience, have been the dive in and get it done sort of a thing. So they do all their learning just in the nick of time and on the job. So I wonder if any of those numbers would be reflected in the on the job training component of the report. For customer service, this comes from what I've seen time and again in the companies that I've worked on, is that customer service being such an entry-level component, a lot of the customer service training can get lumped in with new employee orientation, right? We're going to orient you to the company, and here's your job, and then go and do it. So I'm wondering if some of these numbers might be shifted in other areas. Yes, they're prevalent in what we do as a training organization, but they're shifted in other areas.
Yeah, I see your point. So for sales, it could be into the processes, procedures, or it could go into something else. And I would like to bring up an interesting point that I saw in the data here and share it with all of you, which is what exactly Paul spoke about, the new employee orientation. And this time we have actually seen the data being reported and logged in, but over the period of, I think, 10 years, they rarely saw much data coming in, primarily because new employee orientation does not really contribute towards the business outcome immediately. It's over a period of time. So new employee orientation, if it is an onboarding, would really not be reported. But on the job training too, most of the time goes unreported. People don't report it as much. They do it in different ways. Either there's shadowing, or there's, just learning on the fly from your supervisor or some peer. So that goes unreported too. So that was an interesting observation that this report provided us, was new employee orientation nowadays is being strategically placed as something that can impact the business value if done the right way. So I can see how customer service plays into that. But I still have a feeling, I think, and Ursula and Brittany, who are with me on today here at Glidewell, if I can make an example of it, we are trying to improve on a customer service experience training, primarily realizing that it's an ongoing process. You can't have one training and let it be. And I think that is where we are seeing, if you look into the healthcare and pharmaceutical, it's very low. Manufacturing, it's lower. But if you think of it, in reality, these are the people who are having many more touches with the customers over a period of time, and they have to improve it here. Jeffrey, do you think I'm saying the right thing here? Jeffrey?
I do think I think you're nailing it, Susmitha. I think it's a good interpretation of the data.
Okay. Thank you.
Tracy also points out here that she wonders if it's a matter of population as well. Sales, customer service is often focused only in one area, where managerial interpersonal compliance may apply more broadly across the organization. So in these particular instances, what we might be finding here is we might be realizing that the L&D departments, oh, I like this. The L&D departments are the ones that are focusing big picture and the strategic for the organization, and they leave the sales training, the on-the-job training, right? But the sales training, the customer service training to the managers and the leaders of those departments, because that's focused solely on them. That would be an interesting question to find out from the creators of the State of the Industry report, which would be, when you're surveying the information from your company, are you only focusing on that which the L&D department is creating training for, or are you taking a look at all of the training initiatives that some of the other groups did? I remember at Aurora, we did have a sales trainer sitting over on the side doing some other training work. They weren't part of our team. They were part of the sales team, and they reported directly to the salesperson. I'm sure there's other organizations that operate in a similar way, where they've got someone focusing only on training for that small department that's not necessarily part of the bigger L&D.
Right, and
division.
State of Industry does take only the L&D into report, but fortunately, because, you know, with my team, I'm part of the team. I do product and sales, so I'm part of the team, so it might have gone to the context. But what they do mention in the data, in the report, is they do not take into context those companies. Those do not elevate L&D as part of business outcomes. So those are left out. So you're right. Those which do not account for, and those don't count sales as L&D, are being left out. So maybe that is the reason why we see the gap in the numbers. And Lynn had a question. Lynn, FIRE means finance, insurance, and real estate. That's the acronym for FIRE in ATD.
So we're going to toss this over to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, this is your next big question here, focusing on ATD-Orange County data and action. And for this one here, we're talking about the 3 largest content and portfolio areas that have remained unchanged: manager and supervisor, mandatory and compliance, and processes, procedures, and business practices. You wanted to talk about that a little bit.
So just real quick on it. So the way the chapter addresses that, and we have been addressing it, and we're getting even more focused on it. It's one of the things that has been changing over the last couple of years, or adding to it. The SIGs focus in these areas. They get down to the specifics and the application of training to the different topics, managerial, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where the SIGs can really shine. And Susmitha, for this year, has kind of changed the format and the emphasis. So the SIGs are going to get even more attention this year and be much more valuable to the members. Back to you, Paul.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So we just want to toss this question out there for y'all folks. How might this data influence the learning and development decisions that you make for your organization? If you want to type it in the chat box, everyone say bye, Tracy. If you want to type it in the chat box, or if you want to share it vocally, we'd love to hear from you. Charles, I'm curious what you mean by not nearly enough. Lobby for any larger instructional design staff, okay. Oh, you're saying the data is not going to nearly influence the strategy enough? Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, ideas?
So, I have one comment, Paul, and it's basically a result of the program that you're doing. So we have a chance to go through the data, and you don't really learn the report. So one of the things that this industry report does is it's backing. It's a quick resource for backing for any proposal you're going to make to the executive team about the training you're going to do. And you can utilize the data as part of your argument for persuading management to back your training. And possibly you'll say, look, it's cheaper if we go in-house. It's we'll beat the industry average if we go outside. This is the results we've gotten, which are short of the industry. So you can use it for comparative analysis in your argument within the organization to get the resources you need to conduct the training you need to help the company grow in the ways it's targeted.
Correct. And I think Lynn says the same thing too. Lynn has a similar take on it. And that is the best thing, to use the best practices. So we have JD Powers that we follow for HR to see who is doing well. We have talent management awards that we give out. So as L&D department, we can always, like Lynn says, try to make the best practices, which would be wonderful. And Paul, do you think we can get them somewhere and share it on our ATD-OC website so people can actually take a look? That would be interesting to see if people can just download it and keep it with them to strive for it.
I'm sorry, what would we be downloading?
The best practices. I think it would be nice. Like Lynn says, we could encourage them to strive for the BEST practices that ATD looks for. What are the benchmarks that they look for in this? And then we can share it with them. That's an excellent point, Lynn. Thank you.
One of the things that we'll be doing probably is updating our website to reflect a little bit more some of the ATD national competencies and measurements that they have. Absolutely. To be able to have those resources existing in our site and showing the benefit of the national research with the community practices, I think would be grand. Jeffrey, you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say the whole report can go in our Power Member section on the ATD website. So you picked it up. One of the things, this is the first time I've been on a go-to training on the phone. You have no access to any of the visuals. So when you guys reread the comments, that's great. Tell somebody on the phone what's going on.
Okay, so here's a comment. Exactly, Jeff. Benchmarking is expected for proposed changes.
Good one, Paul.
So Smita, a little bit more about content delivery methods. Would you like to dive into that for us?
Sure, I would like to do that for you. So the content delivery methods basically are, there are different types of content. So the good news for all of those who are all instructor-led trainers, there's been an uptake and it's actually gone up. And you would actually be scratching your heads thinking, e-learning is supposed to be taking over. What's happening here? And why is the all instructor-led training going up? If you can see, there's an all instructor-led training that is 66.8%, mobile is 2.1, all self-paced is 29.3. So I would like to break it down for you so it makes more sense to you. All instructor-led that actually means that which includes too, where like Paul, Jeffrey, and I are doing. This is instructor-led. This would come under the umbrella of instructor-led, and it's all inclusive. It could be remote, like Ursula, I think, said she wanted to do more remote. That is there, and there's an online component to it in classroom. So that's why you see an uptick in it. So it doesn't mean that it's in person, and also tying it back to the data we saw earlier, the managerial and supervisory trainings, the interpersonal and the skill developed based training going up. So, for example, if you want to do a team building exercise or you want to bring teams together and to collaborate to learn about collaboration, cooperation. These are mostly done in person or are instructor-led. And that, I think, is actually reflecting, both of them are going hand in hand, and it makes a lot of sense to me that way. So that is one component of it. And the mobile, there is a catch to this in this data, in this report particularly, primarily because by mobile, they actually mean only those classrooms that you can access only from your mobile devices. And that essentially leaves out those places, like Jeffrey just brought up a good point. He said, hey, I'm using this on the phone for the first time, and it's good that you're reading out. But the point being, he's using it on his mobile device. But right now, the webinar is being hosted on, most probably all of you are using it on your desktops. So we are leaving out essentially that kind of data where people are able to access the same technology or the same classrooms, not only from desktops, a few of them are studying it from their mobile devices too, like your iPads. That is not taking into consideration all that. So that's the reason why I think there's a smaller number. It might go up if they take that into consideration. All self-paced, this is interesting. Again, self-paced is also taking a different trend nowadays. Earlier on, we used self-paced where the company gave you an outline of this is what is going to happen for you over a period of time, and you have to go through those. So those have now come under mandatory trainings. Self-paced have also now come into e-learning. Self-paced has become where we are also giving a career pathway to the employees at work and having them opt in to certain programs as they want to grow. So that is where self-paced has also become very wide in network, and catching it has become very difficult. So these numbers are actually reflective of what's happening in the industry, but always take it with a pinch of salt. There might be a few things that are slipping through the gaps, and these may be a little more higher than what we think. So that being said, still the instructor-led is being touted as most effective. A quick show of hands from all of you. Is this what you're seeing at your workplace, or is there something that you're seeing different? And we may want to challenge ATD National. That'll be good. Orange County will butt heads with ATD National then. So Edith is shocked that ILT is still high. Charles says, yes, I'm on a mobile device and can see. That's my point, Charles. We're not taking all these. So ATD National, when they did this survey, had a very, I would say, very limited view of what a mobile device meant for them. It was mobile, created especially for mobile kind of classrooms. But I think we are able to access all classrooms on mobile now. You don't have to create a classroom specific for mobile. People are creating a classroom that goes across the board. ILT for soft skills training for leaders as well, correct? And that is where I say ILT is going up, because leaders want to, even if it is a smaller group, they want to have that face-to-face conversations and talk to each other. So Edith asked, what's the difference between ILT virtual and ILT online? They are the one and the same, but sometimes ILT virtual would be someone pre-recording them and putting it out there. Online would be like, you're doing right now. But it's the same. I would usually say it's the same. Right, Denise shares that higher ILT makes sense to her because it's cheaper and can take less time to develop for small and mid-sized companies. Many companies are short of the investment self-paced e-learning takes to develop and maintain. Agreed, and that is one of the main things that comes up. Yes, Ursula agrees with it too. Self-paced is growing at my employer. Edith. So Charles, there's no industry, the industry specific data is what we showed you earlier on. So the way you benchmark yourself here is you go in, okay, ATD National gives you a very nice way of benchmarking yourself with the companies that are, with the data they shared. Look at these different groups that we had. Paul, can we go back to that slide where we had consolidated and the other industries? I think it's on slide 7 or 8, somewhere around that place. Correct. So if you look at this, Charles, there's There's the finance industries, there's the healthcare, the manufacturing and management consulting. So they ask us to divide our companies into those portions. So let's say, for example, L&D, and you're developing training for a sales group. So maybe, or there's a group of executives, you could slot them under consulting, management consulting. You could slot something under manufacturing and then try to benchmark as per these. So this is an interesting way that ATD National presents it to us. They consolidate all the information by industry, but then they ask us to use it to translate it to our departments within our organizations too. I hope that helps. And if you want to access this report, we are going to share with you the link to it. If you're an ATD National member, you get it for free, you can download it. But if you're not, you can purchase it from them. And there's a summary of this even in the TD magazine in December, for the December magazine. So you can also access that and see if you want to download that. We'll be sharing these slides with you anyway. So there is a little bit of information on this for you. Does that help you, Charles? Correct, Ken. I agree with you that there's a lot more to self-paced, and that's what I meant. That self-paced could be in many more ways. Self-paced need not necessarily mean e-learning and mobile learning is, of course, more in Apple. That also is because of the industry that it is. It is able to manage it, like Denise said, it's able to manage it and afford it. It makes it much more easier for them to do it. It's the same demography, the demographics there help manage that kind of a system. And this is not really applicable all across the organizations. So that being said, can you move over to the next slide, Paul? This will be slide 19. So this is what we spoke about now. Just to summarize on it, it's focusing on all the instructor delivery. If you see, it's 67%. And this was actually an uptick from the previous year. And it was about 66%, but there's a slight uptick, but it's not still gone down. Thanks for all the e-learning that's going up. And it's almost like we are surprised that with all this e-learning going up, how come this did not diminish? No, it did not diminish. So we're all safe. We can still go about training people. And 53% of the hours that we do, 53 hours for all the training that you do, if you were to calculate the number of hours you do in your organization, more than half of the hours are for your instructor-led. It's not for anything else. So I think we pretty much covered this, Paul. Can you just... Yeah, but let's go to 23. So I would like to really know from all of you how this data provided by the state of industry has affected, or from Jeffrey rather, how it has affected our ATD-OC strategy. Jeffrey, you there?
Jeffrey, just so you know, this is the slide that talks about the fact that traditional instructor-led live classroom format is over 50% of all learning hours, but the use of self-paced online learning continues to grow.
Yep. So it was that trend. I mean, obviously, it was starting. There was a lot of talk. People were moving to webinars, but because we know people like live content, webinars can be flat sometimes. Having and being able to incorporate a classroom and the audience and all of these are different elements that we now have to kind of incorporate. In a way, it's like, for those that remember, it's the way they used to shoot NFL football games and the way they shoot them now. It's much more personal now. They're getting right down the field. They've got cameras that come down onto the field close to it. They've got cameras on the sidelines. They've got audio tied to the coaches and other things. So that's what's going on in the training world with technology, and it's going to affect all the classrooms, all the presentations, all the programs that are out there. And there's a learning curve, and it's a huge learning curve. we fortunately were lucky enough to have Vern, who we could ask advice of. So everything makes a difference in how it's perceived, from the lighting, the sound equipment. Sound is really one of the most sensitive things. And then how you communicate back and forth between the different groups: live presenter, live audience, remote presenter, remote audience. Different technologies have different nuances and things like this. So even though, live presentation is still important and people want it, we've also got to prepare for the future. And the idea is that the ATD-OC chapter is doing that, and they're doing the experimentation so they can pass the knowledge on through our members to all the organizations in Orange County. And that's what we've got here. Back to you, Paul.
So everyone, Paul has left the building. I just wanted to let everyone know he had to go out for something, and he's left the building. Jeffrey, that was a great take on the strategy, ATD-OC strategy. And to that, I would like to further add, we had a strategy meeting recently led by all of, for the board members. And primarily, the basic conversation was based on this data that we are getting from all around us. What is it that we want to provide to our members? And Jeffrey here has been one of the people who has spearheaded this hybrid programs or taking it virtual, because we know that is where we are headed to. But on the other hand, we don't let go of the instructor-led, because as we see here, people do still like that one-on-one interactions. They want to come in. So we kind of try to keep, for example, the next one is coaching skills. Coaching skills is something that you want to deliver in person. So you'll see that in person. What we're talking today could have been done online easily, so we did it online. So we are trying to flow with however we feel people are accepting training and look at training, and they take training, so we come out with SIGs. So we're trying to do everything to match however we see this data is coming out. We're coming towards the end of this. I would like to quickly sum up by bringing up what was the interesting take on this. Take away from this data for me was of course, the instructor-led training still being alive and well, and it's not being challenged as much. But instructor-led, again, I told you, is virtual too. So we're seeing an uptick in that. We have a lot of virtual instructors coming on, of which one I am too. I teach at UCLA Extension, and it's quite a popular classroom. So that tells me people like to go virtual to learn from instructor-led. And then we have the other thing which went up, which really surprised Denise, and which was managerial and supervisory. But all of you really said that is how you're seeing in your workplace. The other one was interpersonal skills that really shot up. So these are the places that we might want to look at to build and develop. We know these are going to go higher up. This is what is existing. But that doesn't mean you don't look at the other areas, because we have focused so much on this. Maybe the other areas also need to be looked into. The one thing that really stood out was e-learning. E-learning was something that we saw was on a lot smaller scale, but then it was much above the 2014 and 2015 barriers that we saw. The data from then, and now there was almost an uptake of, I think, 17 points or something like that. So that is something that we might want to look into it, primarily because the number of hours we are investing in training in person are going down. We like to do it more pre-recorded webinars, or we want to do it remote. We don't want to travel. We want to cut down costs on training as much as we can, but still deliver, and which is why e-learning is slowly picking up. And we're also not taking into account all the outdated technologies like CD-ROMs or others. We're just looking into e-learning, primarily being mobile-based or computer-based learning. So these were the interesting takeaways. But one thing that Paul did touch upon was on-the-job training. And what they found was, while most of the healthcare industries still did shadowing, they did not now as much believe in rotations or in believing on-the-job training being a part of training in the formal way. They felt it was built into the job, and hence that goes a lot unreported or underreported. And the second is the social learning, which is something that all of us do a lot with each other. We share with each other, we talk to each other, and each one of us has some format. Like, for example, in Glidewell, we have the teams. Some people have Yammers, and you have other ways that you are trying to exchange information and learn and share. But many people have taken social media learning offline. They've gone, like, for example, I spend a lot of hours on LinkedIn for lynda.com or the LinkedIn Learning, which goes unreported or underreported. So there's a lot of data that we're still missing. So keep that in your mind when you go into making this data your own and customizing it for yourself. With that, we would like to, while we end the data here, we would like to hear something from all of you. I see all of you need to leave, but we would like to share something on the community and partnerships. Jeffrey, would you like to speak up to our community and partnerships that we're doing with ATD-Orange County?
So we're investing more time. We're investing more time and energy into developing the partnerships and seeing where they want to go. I know Susmitha met with Victoria Torres over at 10C this week to talk about how we can take it further. ATD is partnered with 10C for supplying training to their members. We're also in discussions with Scott Hamilton over at ENC. He and I had a meeting, and they've got an event coming up on the next week, I think, is their next event, and it looks like a very good one. And then also we've partnered with CLO Magazine, and we're one of the sponsors for the CLO Symposium, which is happening in Phoenix in May. And we're looking to continue other partnerships, either with organizations, corporations, or nonprofits or other entities. All of that to bring greater value and greater opportunities to our members. And we're all doing this as a volunteer board. And so everybody's squeezing in time to do this. And our volunteer community at ATD-OC is growing. We've got committees coming along, and so we're getting there. And Susmitha has taken over the torch, and she's doing a great job. Just had a wild board meeting on Monday, and we're going from there. So, jump in with both feet, volunteer if you haven't already, and for those that have volunteered, thank you for everything you do. Back to you, Susmitha.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for expanding on that. That was nicely said. Thank you so much. And but here I would again tie it back to what we went through right now, the industry report, and what Paul brought up in one of the first slides. What are your professional development goals? And that is what we strive to meet. If you see the screen that you see now, I'm showing you all the partnerships that we did over the past year. And this was primarily with the aim to bring what they have to offer to the community by way of talent management. So for example, the one that is missing on this is Edwards Life Sciences came on board to share the talent management and how they manage talent in the organization, all the tips and tricks. And we have Webster who engages with us, and Gladwell Laboratories hosted us. But once you enter into these industries, you learn more about them, you learn more about their culture, you get an inside peek into how these organizations work and what they're important for. So this is what we're trying to bring to you. We're trying to bring you your own professional development goals ahead of our own needs to make it our needs. And one thing that we are striving for very always fastidiously is to build our foundational competencies. As all of you are aware, ATD National and any ATD chapter follows this. Everything that we do needs one of these competencies. So if you look at it, we just put the numbers out there for you. The past year, we have achieved 1 target in personal skills, 2 in industry knowledge, 4 in technology literacy, 3 in business skills, and 2 in interpersonal skills. Global mindset trying to reach this year so we can bring it to you. So this is what we mean. When you see a data point, the reason why we put these numbers up and why we track ourselves is we're trying to create data points for ourselves too. Data is thus very useful for us to help us understand what are the gaps and where we want to proceed in the future in the next. And this is a fun video from the different places. We have the total trainer graduates from Gladwell. We have Karen Thompson, who did our SIG. Nancy Ingram is our volunteer of the month. The training and technology project team led by Paul. And we would like you to be a part of this story in the future. And like we said, we had a strategy meeting. And what we did today was to connect with all of you. We thought it was a good investment of our time, and we hope this was a good investment of time for all of you too. And hope we all grew together with this. If you have any comments, there will be a feedback form coming to you. I encourage all of you to please fill it and send it to us. Also give us some options that you would like to see in the future, any topics that you would like to see from us, any feedback on what we could have done better, what you liked, anything, and it'll really help us give us the best for you. With that, I would say have a good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jeffrey, for being here. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. You're still there, Susmitha. Nice job. I'm going to sign off.
All right, Jeffrey. Thank you.